Greetings, everyone. This is Karen with Naturally with Karen, and I've got a live stream today talking about selenium and toxic heavy metals. This is something that we didn't really give a lot of thought about, back in the 50s and 60s before I was born and after I was born. But today we have to give consideration to toxic heavy metals. And what are they? Well, I wrote a list down here. They're lead. We know about that from Flint, Michigan. Flint, Michigan actually could hire someone like Dr. Watts, who I've been learning from, formerly now deceased, Andrew Cutler, who's a PhD in chemistry, and I have several of his books. And so lead, which affected Flint, Michigan, could be handled probably quite well by someone who's really familiar with toxic heavy elements and what we could do for the people, not just, refitting the water structures. So mercury was all over in California due to the gold rush. And so in a lot of our Almaden Valley, where I grew up in San Jose, California, in the early 1960s and 70s, a lot of those areas, the estuaries and the little rivers and so forth, are just flooded with mercury due to the gold rush. Isn't that crazy, right? Okay, so lead, mercury, cadmium, if you're living approximate or near to a place that does smelting of heavy metals, you could be absorbing that in your skin. So as I'm going through my own stabilization period from the gathering, right, making an assessment of what I needed, stabilization step 2, which is since March the 6th until the end of February for me, which is, pulling mucus up out of the lungs, clearing the bronchial tubes, getting sleep at night, doing a lot of scrubbing on the body, saunas and things, a lot of walking, a lot of cardio, exercise. So there's a stabilization period, and then there's a deep detoxification period, and then there's the regeneration and the healing where you're radiant and you really look amazing. I learned to work this myself through all the different forms of education, college and herbal school and raw foods training and various forms of healing at Twin Lakes College of Healing, but mostly through the experience of working with people just like you, okay, and me. So lead, mercury, cadmium from the smelting places, and also aluminum. We got aluminum from our cookware. We got aluminum from constantly wrapping things on the barbecue, especially in aluminum foil, Reynolds wrap, cooking in aluminum pots. I used to ask my partner's mother all the time, who's first generation from Africa, from Liberia, please, please, please be willing to give up those aluminum pots. I know they bring back a lot of memories and you're really familiar with cooking in them. As women, we develop habits about what we like to use and what's in our memory, what we're familiar with. But don't cook in aluminum pots. The aluminum cans with the soft drinks, especially, they're acidic. And so in those aluminum cans, you're going to be drinking aluminum. But where else? You're getting aluminum in all of these injections in your arm, your buttocks, and everything else. I want you to pull out your smartphone, and I want you to, if you're going to get a vaccine, just do a little bit of homework. Just Google right here on your smartphone, ingredients of the MMR, ingredients of the varicella, ingredients of the flu vaccine. If you're going somewhere like Walgreens, go to the pharmacy and say, like I did with White Drug and I did with Walgreens, and I did for my clients, I did it for myself, I did it to make sure I was still speaking the truth in terms of as far as we know. But I asked, what are the ingredients in these vaccinations? And sure enough, at the Walgreens, right here where I'm at, there was a billboard out front which showed thimerosal, which is a mercury derivative, aluminum, formaldehyde, which is an embalming agent. I don't want those things injected into my body. whether or not the vaccine itself is effective, the adjuvants and the ingredients, adjuvants help it to be propelled into your body, are not something I'm 100% sure aren't going to bring me a greater risk. Okay, so if I have aluminum and the mercury exposure from where I grew up in San Jose, and I had silver amalgam fillings in my mouth, I'm looking at a potential load. But not just me. The other part of that potential toxic heavy metal load is any children that I had. Because you see, the toxic heavy metals can travel through the maternal cord blood to the infant. And now, years later, they can show up. Or years later, you can move somewhere where there's paper mills nearby. Or previously, there were toxic wastes on your property that were cleared off before you bought your land. So these are all things that you may not know. You might not even have any way of knowing or finding out, right? Like we frequently can go and look up our genealogy, our ancestry. We can look at all sorts of things. But just as important, if not maybe even more so, is to have your hair tissue mineral analysis. It's called an HTMA profile number 2. And it couldn't be easier. You order it right through the website, naturallywithkaren.com. I always put the link at the bottom. It's $125 plus $750 shipping. So my local clients, I've had professional space that I rent for 16 years. If after watching this or some of the other live streams, you decide to order one, you can circumvent the shipping of $750 and just come to the shop and pay the $125. Otherwise, I ship you a kit. I ship your stuff to the lab, and then I ship your patient report. So that's why there's the $750 in shipping. Okay. So hair tissue is another way of finding out what's really going on inside. You know about blood testing because everyone does. It's the most predominant form of testing or screening that's being done. But I'm going to show you 2 case examples which actually came directly from Dr. Watts, not me. I have my own, but I like his, and I'm going to share his. We speak with each other on the phone. He lives in Boca Raton. He does not do, as far as I know, private consults. Anyway, this hair test that you get requires that you take about a teaspoon of hair. If you don't have scalp hair or it's heavily dyed or bleached or permed or anything in any way that it's treated chemically, you're going to want to either wait for it to grow out, or if it's a male, you could gather chest hair that's not dyed. If we have that anymore, usually we have so much waxing and electrolysis, it's like I don't see it on people anymore. We're waxed clean. But you can also use pubic hair, number 3. Number 4 is fingernails, and number 5 is toenails, and all of those are acceptable, with number 1 being sort of our aim is just to go for scalp hair. Okay. So now I want to show you something or explain with you and relate with you something that you're used to hearing the word minerals, but minerals fall within the category of trace elements. Think of them as like the major spark plugs in your body. Dr. Sebi talked about bladderwrack and Irish moss and about how some of the sea vegetables actually contain 92 or more of these Dr. Watts calls your spark plugs. So now to be able to fit those into your body is going to help you to not only sleep, get rid of restless leg syndrome, get rid of diabetes, get rid of all of these things together with a plan, because it's going to show you exactly what to do and what not to do. And I'm going to show you in these 2 really quick, like 3-sentence long stories. Okay. So every one of your trace elements is correlated with a function and glands and organs and diseases that you end up having in your body. They're also your nutritional elements, which you call your minerals, right? Calcium, potassium, sodium, all of those, right, are related with a vitamin in your body. So now for many, many, many years, I've sensed copper imbalance. I see it in the hair, the eyebrows, the eyelashes. I'm able to pick it up even through the screen quite easily. Okay. I can see with the way the skin will wrinkle, the way the women will get the 3 lines on their forehead, and men, by the way, not to discredit any men here. Zinc is very related to B6. Copper is very related to vitamin C. Calcium, no surprise here with all the fortification of cow udder milk, mucus, is related to vitamin D. And on and on and on. I'm not going to make this a dissertation on vitamin mineral analysis here, but can you see now the correlation? Just like I've explained to you before between copper and zinc. So the value of getting a hair tissue test and having it interpreted correctly, recommendations being made. Certainly, it is easy for you to read the findings on the test yourself, but sometimes when we're a bit older and we have medications or bioidentical hormone replacement, we've had situations come up, maybe there's a health warning on the horizon, right? It could be mental, emotional, it could be gynecological, it could be endocrine, it could be autoimmune. I will guarantee you that through getting a hair tissue test, you are going to have access to a type of a data about you, just you, that you won't be able to get elsewhere. And the number one benefit, oh, bless up, good to see you, Ross Green. The number one benefit are the toxic heavy metals that I talked about, the lead, the arsenic, the cadmium, all of those things. Bless up, good to see you. So this is another avenue for exploration. And sometimes you might say to yourself, you know what? I've been going to the doctor, meaning the Western allopathic doctor, right? The new system, most of these hospitals have been in place since 1914 or around that time. We've gone from having the one singular doctor who births the babies into having just a plethora of specialty doctors. But I note that from the time I opened my business, February 1st of 2003, after having had my business in California, helping people with coaching, that when people would go to the endocrinologist and lay down $800 plus a lot of hard-earned money for blood testing, that the endocrinologist would come back and say, well, we don't see anything super glaring right now, so why don't you come back and test again in 6 months, or why don't you come back in a year? It looks like you're just fine. By the time you come back 6 months or a year from now, here's what's happened with my clients. There's been stillbirth, there's been breast tissues, including breast cancer and mastectomies. There's been uterine cancer, there's been all kinds of cysts on the ovaries. There's been women who are crying because they no longer are fertile and they cannot conceive a baby. There's women that are birthing babies in a less than optimized situation where the babies are not able to fully form their intelligence and their development because mother never had enough of these spark plugs. She never had the ability to have her full energy and her full immune system, okay? So now these toxic heavy metals are going to be identified, except for as we start to do the detoxification, the gathering. Step 2, the stabilization, meaning that you're going to be able to mobilize and excrete before we just start flooding in, a detoxification kit. So many of my clients will come and say, you know what, I thought I would do something really good for myself. And I went and I bought a liver cleanse kit. But oh my gosh, I never felt so horrible in my entire life. And actually, depending on what's going on and all the medications that you're on and how you've eaten and your daily habits, that might be one of the worst things that you could do for yourself, because you could really start to auto-intoxicate from your own liver. So not to scare you, but really, really, and honestly and truly, the first thing you need to do is order the hair tissue. And then you need to, I'll let you know with full honesty, hey, I would really suggest you get a consultation on this, the 45-minute, or why don't we just do a half-hour consultation? I know that we work hard for our money. I know that we all want to be well, which means we want to have energy. We want to feel good. We want to wake up in the morning and feel like we actually did sleep and rest. Okay. So let me tell you a couple of things that were going on. These were Dr. Watts' stories. Okay. There was a patient who came in. She had lots and lots of multiple symptoms. She explained these 5 or 6 symptoms to the doctor, the last of which was always feeling tired. She said, I've got fatigue, and it's the worst because I don't feel like I have the energy to go to work. I don't feel like I have the energy to parent, and I really don't know what to do about it. So she had already gone to her allopathic primary care PCP doctor. We all have, or most people have, I do not, have a primary care physician, PCP. That's the doctor, by the way, that if something happens to you in an emergency and you're in, now in a hospital in a life or death situation, that's the person that you've elected, absent a durable, powerful for healthcare, because I used to draft these when I worked in law in California, that's going to be making the decisions for you. So you should really choose wisely, and it should be someone that's really in accordance with how you think and what your belief system is. So now she had multiple symptoms. She couldn't work. She couldn't parent, really. Everything was just really horrible. And the fatigue was the worst of her symptoms. But she went to another doctor because she just felt so frustrated that it shouldn't be the case. She should feel a lot better than how she really does. And the other doctor did a hair tissue test. Again, you take about a teaspoon of hair from the crown, the temples, the temporal, the 2 temples. These are the temples. That's why when we go out into nature, we can meditate through our temples. Also through the occiput, the back of the head. Why do we want to do that? Well, because we're looking at the brain-blood barrier blood, the flow that it has, where most people have their headaches, at the top of the base here and at the back. We want to get a good reading. So we want to take it from 4 locations. Now, if you're a guy and you've got a big receding spot, then you take it wherever you can that's going to make life work for you. And because I've had that situation many times, just take it for where it's going to work. Okay. So after she went to the other doctor and she had the hair tissue done by the doctor pulled up her results, put her on the right spark plugs, give her a couple of tweaks that she needed to do. In my case, it's going to be, I'm going to look at your diet, your habits, as well as your spark plugs, because I've got 35 years under my belt, so I can put a lot of pieces together for you. Even just looking, observing, I can give you some good feedback. Excuse me. Within 6 weeks, she had marked improvement where she was otherwise told by her PCP doctor, the primary care physician, to just come back in 6 months and test again because we can't find anything. How often have you been told, we can't find anything, we don't know what it is? Or maybe you're like me, you're someone who's also a healer. And sometimes it's a great idea to step outside of ourselves and ask someone else for help, because whether it's like me going to a business coach tomorrow, right? It's a great investment for me because she's going to give me absolute honest feedback about what I do and say, Karen, don't do this, do this. If I go to a life coach and I say, here's my goals for the next 3 to 5 years, she's going to say, don't do that, do this, because I hear this is your goal coming down the road. So coaching is something that's absolutely fabulous. Good to see you, Spring. Welcome. Coaching is fabulous. So we were just speaking about a woman who had blood testing, had multiple symptoms. The last symptom, which was her worst, was fatigue. She went to the doctor. There was lots of blood testing. She gave up because the doctor said, well, come back in 6 months. We know how that goes. We didn't find anything. I mean, it might be in your head. Would you like an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety? All of the anti-pills, antibiotic, anti-anxiety, antidepressant, right? And all of these anti-inflammatories, all of these come with very dire consequences. I've avoided them most of my entire life. So now here's another. I told you I was going to tell you two stories. So this story involves an infant who's not very old that Dr. Watts also was helping. And the infant was born, and soon after birth, the infant had seizures, a lot of irritability, just a lot of restlessness and moving around. Okay. The physical development, like there's these physical developmental milestones, like when you hold your head up, when you start to sit up on your own as an infant, when you start to walk, when you start to talk. These are your physical developmental milestone periods that are really kind of etched in stone about human development, but they're changing rapidly. And they're changing because we don't really have the spark plugs that we need to have. They're not fit, they're not gapped like on a car used to be. So this infant was also tested, they didn't know what to do. So the mother finally went to someone else who did a tissue test for the infant, okay? And, come to find out, they did some extensive workups by a well-known hospital, and the well-known hospital just couldn't really offer anything. So I'm taking that as a polite way of saying something like Mayo or something like a university hospital. So when they say a well-known hospital, so the well-known hospital did extensive workups on the infant. Why was it not meeting developmental criteria? Why was this infant having seizures? Why was this infant so irritable and moving around? Well, when they did the hair tissue mineral analysis, the HTMA, on this baby, it turns out that it had several factors which needed to be adjusted. Again, through the spark plugs. If your spark plugs are not as they're supposed to be in your vehicle, like we talked about yesterday, your vehicle, this is your vehicle. Your spirit is inside of this vehicle, or at least it's the projection of it if you look into quantum physics. But in any event, you're made out of earth and air and fire and water and spirit. And if you're inside of this vehicle, it really does pay off for you to take good care of it. The infant had, let me just double check here. 2 months later, the infant, after having the spark plugs, the trace elements, the nutritional elements, the minerals fixed for the infant, the seizures went away. The infant was taken off phenobarbital. No one wants their infant on phenobarbital, okay? The infant was no longer, irritable and restless and started meeting the developmental milestones. Now, I was a therapeutic foster parent for almost 10 years, off and on, not the solid 10 years, not straight through, but I learned a great deal. And part of what I learned, as I'm turning my page here so I cover everything, was that we're drugging children at excessive rates. And that's why I met with two psychiatrists, Dr. Bauer and Dr. Svingen, when I worked through Northwood's children's homes. And I worked with young males because I myself had a young male child. So if we would really look into this, with all the money that is spent and paid out through the state to foster parents, to the psychiatrist, to the specialized contained classrooms, to the drugs and the runs to the pharmacy, and then the pharmacy drops, the PCAs, the personal care assistants that are being picked up by the city and the county to support families with children, thankfully, that have less than optimistic experiences, optimized experiences in life. Wouldn't it be better if we could go in and start to prevent instead of try to put the fire out all the time, okay? Now, I want to go into a tad about, because that's what the live stream is about, is selenium and heavy toxic metals. Experimental studies have been done for a great many years. Hair testing has been done for many decades. And the lab that I work through as an approved practitioner has been around for 35 years now. But studies have been done which demonstrated a profound effect of selenium on mammary tumor formation. Now, with the severity of breast cancer today, which is 100% linked to diet, your spark plugs, and your thyroid, okay? Selenium is something that I use quite often with my clients, but I don't just throw supplements at people, which is what happened when they went to go visit naturopathic and integrative doctors. In fact, the last 3 clients that have done more extensive long-term work with me left a naturopathic doctor with a bag full of $350 worth of supplements, including, on occasion, collagen. Now, if we haven't gotten you through the gathering and the stabilization phase, and we haven't gotten you even into the detoxification phase, we definitely don't want to be throwing collagen at you. I definitely don't want you drinking dead bone broth. Not because, I'm this bleeding heart vegan, but because it really isn't going to be wise for you to introduce something that's so bacteria filled. Maybe that's something that we could do, as in our Neanderthal days, but we don't need to do it today. All right. So selenium deficiency is correlated, like we talked about at the start of this live stream. A trace element, nutritional element, a mineral is correlated with a vitamin. Selenium, it can be correlated with vitamin E. So where there's selenium deficiency and low vitamin E, you're going to have greater incidence of lung, skin, and gastrointestinal cancers. So low selenium deficiency combined with low vitamin E, more lung, skin, and stomach cancer, gastrointestinal, GI. Okay. So the mammary tumor formation with deficient selenium, that's why you want to have your hair tissue test done. I cannot emphasize enough, spend $125 on yourself, please. All you got to do, it's all through the mail. You don't even have to do a video consult. All you got to do is go to naturallywithkaren.com, go to where it says lab testing or shop, either one, click on the hair test, click on the profile number 2, click order, okay? Put your information in, order your test. The next morning, I'm mailing it out through the USPS. That's fire snoring. You're going to get your test with all the clear instructions in an envelope that's already postage paid. Throw it back in the mail. I'm going to get it to you via email first. I'm going to mail you a hard copy. You're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. It's going to warn you way ahead of time. It's going to show you exactly what to do and what not to do. It's super important. Selenium has an inhibitory effect upon chemical carcinogens. Selenium, I'm going to repeat it. Selenium has an inhibitory. It reduces, it slows down, it changes, it helps chemical carcinogens. How many of you have eaten at barbecues during your life, right? How many of you have had charred, blackened swordfish, blackened shark stuff? I did back in the day. I was putting myself through college and I worked at a place called the Rusty Pelican and, had the tray up in the air with all the blackened fish and everything. And it was great. It was great tips. Blackened fish taste amazing to me back at that time, but it's a carcinogen, right? So barbecuing is a carcinogen. So selenium will actually accelerate. It's going to make it faster to get the heavy metals out of you. So depending on a person, because of my 35 years of experience, because of rebuilding me this 5th time now, and you're going to see the skin changes, the hair changes, the curl, the bounce is coming back. I've still got 30 pounds to take off. The face is going to change and all of that. This is the stabilization period, which started for me on March the 6th, and it's going to go for me till the end of May. Now, so when clients say to me, well, how long is it going to take? Ask me, and I'll make a package deal for you where you get the hair test and you get weekly or bi-weekly or monthly consultations with me, and we'll work a plan together where I can help you to stay on track, help to keep you motivated. Okay. On a personal note, I use Selenium on most of my clients once we get down the road. Otherwise, you try to go too fast. You get the sense that someone's like, hey, I can only do 2 sessions with you. And you're trying to give them everything in a hurried way. And it really is a journey. So I get it. We can't always pay that kind of money. But if you set up a regular package plan, give me the hair test, give me this many, I've got this much money to spend. What can we do for that, right? It's not necessarily let's make a deal, but it's what kind of energy do we bring? And don't hesitate to ask me if you really don't have the energy that is currency or money. Ask me to do a trade. Maybe there's a trade that you can think of so that you still, you must advocate for yourself. In times when I did not have any money, I had to advocate for myself. I traded massage, or I traded food that I grow, or I traded any number of things, dog walking, okay? So lastly, I wanted to say that selenium is highly related to the way that you convert energy. Your thyroid is responsible for getting energy to every single cell in your body. Your thyroid is responsible for energy to every single cell in your body. You have enzymes in your body, amino acids, right? One of the enzymes is called iodothyronine, which means what? There's iodine as a constituent of it, as a part of it, okay? That particular, along with the deiodinase, we don't need to know. See, this is more Harry Potter crap, right? You have enzymes, and these enzymes have to be made up of iodine and selenium. Let's just cut to the crap, okay? So this is what I like to do is I read all these really, really heady abstracts. I had my own subscriptions to the Lancet and the New England Journal of Medicine by the time I was about 25. And I've studied and studied and studied, and I can talk all this jargon just like I could in the legal world for almost 18 years, right? And it sounds really important and impressive, but the bottom line is that you've been institutionalized for so long that you start to believe that studies and big words are powerful and they mean something, and most of the time they don't, okay? So you have enzymes in your body. You make enzymes by having a healthy gut. You make enzymes by having healthy glands. You make enzymes by eating healthy food like Ross Green prepares, okay? So Ross Green Earth in Florida is where you should be eating. That plug is a genuine plug, which is to say that you need to be eating from the earth. You don't want to be eating dead animals that have been factory farmed, because they're not going to work out so well for you, okay? Now, it's related to these two enzymes, and so it has everything to do with converting T4 to T3. Now, a lot of people are working today, and so I'm going to finish right now, and I'm going to now enjoy my chocolate blackberry smoothie. See, this is a little better. There we go. In a recycled jar. I had some raw food for my big meal today. I had one more zucchini left, which I spiral sliced with my little handheld spiral slicer. Cut up a nice big avocado for 99 cents. The zucchinis were 4 for $1.39 at Aldi's. And I put the last of my tahini vegan dressing in there. And I took 3 cloves of garlic because that's something I'm doing is clearing my bronchioles, giving myself a parasite treatment. So I wouldn't use garlic all the time, but I'm using it because I'm using it as an anti-parasitic, okay? I live with dogs. If you live with dogs, you want to do that. So how did I do this? Is I got out my Ninja. I got my Vitamix back from Vitamix Corporation, and I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. You fixed it great. They gave me a brand new carafe with a brand new top. And because I was forced to go out and use a small bullet size Ninja with the small little thing, now I'm totally hooked to the thing. It's just amazing. It's much easier to clean. I don't have to lug this big machine out. And if I'm just making something for me, well, shoot, it's great, okay? So I filled it up, my Ninja bullet type little thing that I put on there, half with filtered water. I put some hemp seeds in there from organic non-GMO from Walmart, very inexpensive to do. I added cacao, C-A-C-A-O, cacao powder. That's why I put the pronunciation up in the top. And that gave it the nice chocolatey. And then I had a container that was half full of organic blackberries, rinsed them off with some filtered water, made sure to put my container in the recycle everything for 30 some odd years. And I mean everything. I have a huge compost bag in my kitchen, and that'll be going when my car is fixed back up to Duluth. So I blended the water, the hemp seeds, some frozen banana, whatever I could fit in there to get it. I like mine kind of on the thicker side. The blackberries, okay, and the cacao powder. And I got a chocolate, and cacao is loaded with which spark plug? Magnesium, okay? Magnesium. So this is going to be really good for you because it's loaded with magnesium, and it's got a little caffeine, so it gives you a little boost if you've got things to do like I do right now. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm going to put my glasses for a second here. Trying to get your okay. Judy. Hey, Judy. Good to see you. Gosh, I haven't heard from you in a good minute. Hope you're doing well. Okay, well, thank you for joining me. Please feel free to hit the share button. Share it on your page. Talk with other people. Please, they do not know. And we could spare a lot of people the anti-voodoo pills, the antibiotic, which we got to use on an occasion, but we overuse it. We all know we've overused it. The anti-anxiety that they put my paternal grandmother on, Xanax, in 1981 when it came out, which did not bode well. The antidepressants, which Dr. Gary Coles educated me. I'd already known a little bit, but he gave me a lot more. And I respect my elders. I have sat at their feet. I have learned from them for many decades. Cynthia Koppel, Dr. Gary Coles, reading ancestors like Professor Arnold Ehret and Hilton Hotema. And I want to thank you for joining me. I'm going to ask you to share it. And I'm going to ask you to seriously think about investing $125 plus a little shipping in yourself. And I'll put the link down below here in just a little bit. Thank you. Thank you for joining me.